Long March, the myth, extolled as the Chinese Revolution, is actually the most disgraceful history of the CCP. The so-called theory of going north to resist Japan is a shameless lie. The Communist Party wants to pretend to be righteous. Of course, it must cheat. Deception is the fourth evil gene of the CCP. At that time, the Japanese army was mainly in the plains of northeast and North China, and the main battlefields were the areas of Beijing, Tianjin, and Shandong. The CCP was going to the plateau areas of the northern Shanxi to fight the Japanese, which is a total lie. In fact, the true route of the Long March is southward and westward. The Central Committee of Communist Party of China, the Red Army, first fled southwestern Hunan, intending to rendezvous with the 2nd and 6th Red Army, to establish a base in Hunan, Hubei, Sichuan, and Guizhou, and its planned armed separatism. After failure, they fled to northeast Sichuan, joined Zhang Guotao, who established the Soviet area. When finally fled to northern Shanxi, the main force of the Central Red Army had been reduced from more than 80,000 to 6,000. It was such an embarrassment. During the anti-Japanese war, the CCP shouted for resistance to Japan, while hiding behind and expanding its territory. On the contrary, they left all the frontal battlefields of the anti-Japanese war to the Kuomintang army. There were more than 200 Kuomintang generals who died on the battlefield during the anti-Japanese war. And the Communist Party commanders had almost no losses. According to the history of the Communist Party of China, during the Red Army's 368-day escape, they traveled more than 20,000 li and 12,500 kilometers, which is the so-called 25,000 li long march that the CCP has always advocated. It also stated that they had marched for 235 days during the day and 18 days during the night, with more than 380 battles conducted. For the numbers that has been fabricated for 70 years, we Chinese people, under the brainwashing of several generations, firmly believe in it. Few people have questioned the authenticity and the rationality of those numbers. First, let's find out how long the 12,500 kilometers are. Starting from Beijing, head south to inland Antarctica. Go west straight to Freetown, a coastal city in Africa. Go north through the Arctic Circle and go straight to Miami, USA. Let's do a simple conversion. The sum of 12,500 divided by 235 plus 18 equals 409.4 kilometers. Before the emergence of mechanized troops, the strongest human ability to run was the emergence of Mongolia during the Genghis Khan era. According to the records of ancient Mongolian war, the Mongolian cavalry spent 2 months and 10 days in the assault and occupation of South Russia, and the attack speed was 55 to 60 kilometers per day. The speed was the speed that Mongols reached on horseback. As we all know, in order to ensure the continuity and compact effectiveness of the march, each soldier was equipped with 3 horses during the march, and the marching was almost all on the plains, and there was sufficient supplies and rest in the meantime. Even so, due to factors such as weather and climate, the march could not be sustained for a long time, because this completely exceeds the physical limits of humans and horses. Then the so-called 25,000-mile-long march, a 1-year march on foot, and a 49-kilometer march every day. There were also extreme environments such as the so-called snow-climbing mountains and grasslands. Is there any story faker than this in the world? Meanwhile, many of the so-called battles propagated by the CCP are all exaggerated or even fabricated. For example, the Chinese are familiar with the Luding Bridge battle. Deng Xiaoping personally said when he met with the US National Security Advisor Brzezinski in 1982. In fact, it was a very simple military operation, not a big deal. The enemy were warlords with old-fashioned rifles, and the number was not large. But we feel it is necessary to dramatize this. because the world has raised various questions about events and the true mileage of the Long March. The Central Party History Research Office gave the most shameless reply. Even today with advanced technology, it is impossible for anyone to completely retake the mileage of the Long March, and it is impossible to reproduce the difficulties and obstacles of the Long March. I certainly would agree with that. Because whether it is today with advanced technology, or the future with more advanced technology, it is impossible to walk a fabricated mileage and reproduce things that do not exist. I have never seen such a shameless one like the CCP.